how you've covered the Israel-Gaza issue. You've been to Ukraine yourself. You've been a part of this India-Pakistan conflict now. Um, I know it's a bit of a direct question, but in your eyes, do you feel that we are on the brink of some kind of global conflict right now this year? Uh, because when World War II was building up, we didn't know that it was a world war that was building up. And I use the term world war very, very cautiously, but just on a very human level, it's starting to seem like that from a global perspective. There's way too many conflicts in the world. Like, I don't remember the last decade being like this, but ever since 2020, I think it's a different time.
Yeah, I think also our access to information has accelerated, and people who understand history won't say this is an unprecedented moment in history, because there is always something that triggers something bigger. And I think what was worrying about the India-Pakistan situation was that miscalculations lead to escalations, which could lead to all-out war. And the danger was two nuclear armed states. And that's why the world should have been sitting up and worried and paying attention and saying, we don't want this to escalate, because a nuclear war between two rivals is not just dangerous for the two rivals, it's dangerous for the entire world. The situation for Ukraine and Russia, we saw how easily and quickly that was triggered, although it built up over a number of years, from the annexation of Crimea, the protests we saw in Maidan, the shifting of governments in Ukraine, and then obviously Vladimir Putin denying that he was going to actually invade Ukraine proper, and that's what he's done, and he's annexed a lot of land. But there is also moments, I think, of hope. Yes, I think you're right. And one sort of miscalculation, misunderstanding can lead to escalation. And we are already seeing all sorts of cold wars simmering in different parts of the world, which can lead to, all out global war. To think that an assassination somewhere could have led to a global war. Anything can happen, and anything can then trigger an all out war. But I do think that I've been on this trip following Donald Trump from Riyadh, Saudi Arabia, to Doha, and then we've been trailing his trip as well to Abu Dhabi. What happened in Riyadh with Ahmed al-Sharaa, the now interim leader of Syria? He was a hardened jihadi. He was an al-Qaeda militant who spent time in one of the harshest American prisons, Abu Ghraib, in Iraq, where, there is no doubt that he has American blood on his hands. And yet he went back to Syria and formed this rebel group that then ended up toppling the Assad regime. And there is even reports that the Trump administration considered for a short period of time to assassinate him, because he's this rebel leader who was taking over, these militants were taking over Syria. And yet on Tuesday, we saw Donald Trump say that he was going to lift sanctions on Syria. On Wednesday, he spent 30 minutes with Ahmed al-Sharaa. And after that meeting, he described him as a tough guy with a tough past, an attractive guy, someone that the United States was willing to work with and deal with. This is geopolitics. This is the nature of the world. The Iranians who for the longest time have had proxies that have operated in the Middle East, that have launched direct attacks on American bases, American embassies, American infrastructure. Now America is sitting with them and coming up with a nuclear deal. And so I did an exclusive interview with Hamas yesterday, where they said, yes, we're in direct talks. Hamas, responsible for October 7 and killing of, Israeli hostages and Israeli citizens inside Israel, which for the United States was an unforgivable move. And we've seen what's happened in Gaza since 60,000 people have been killed as a result. And I did this interview with Hamas yesterday at the hands, by the way, of Israel. Israeli airstrikes have killed these 60,000 people. But I put to the Hamas leader that you triggered this by launching October 7 and you brought this hellfire on your own people. And he said to me, we are in direct talks with the United States. So what I'm trying to say is that the nature of the world whilst it feels scary and stressful, while the information we're getting on a daily basis is that things are triggering everywhere, and we saw another flashpoint in India and Pakistan, how dangerous that was, there is also things happening behind the scenes where negotiations are taking place to diffuse situations and to bring people out from the cold. But this idea that never again, a Holocaust will never happen again, a World War I or II will never happen again, I think is false. And I think people who understand history know that we are on the cusp of something incredibly dangerous, and it can be triggered by a miscalculation, an escalation that can lead to an all-out war. But I'm also heartened by what I'm seeing in different parts of the world in terms of negotiations and deals to try and diffuse situations.
Hey, if you enjoyed this clip from the Ranveer Show, we've uploaded a ton of other clips related to a ton of other topics. So explore the channel because there's something for everyone.